grows long, the mountain calls. Every turn a battle, every straight a fall. Engines roar like hearts that beat, fighting on, refusing to retreat. Like the track, life's got its twist, but the finish line is where the hope begins. Climb the hill, feel the weight. Every second counts, it's not too late. Side by side, we take the fight through the dark into the light.
Hello, and welcome everyone to this week's Full Grip Motorsport event. Today we are heading to England for a 2-hour race around the Snetterton circuit. Located around 31 kilometers southwest of Norwich, the current Snetterton 300 layout is the second longest racing track in the country with a length of almost 4.8 kilometers, around 12 corners. Originally a Royal Air Force base, it was turned into a racetrack in 1951 following a suggestion from the Aston Martin's owner club. Since then, the circuit has undergone some changes until it reached the current Snetterton 300 layout in 2011. The circuit hosts a bunch of different races, for example, the British GT Championship, the British Superbike Championship, and the TCR UK Touring Car Championship. Well, today we are hosting a GT3 race, and currently we have 12 drivers lining up, so let's take a look into qualifying. Yeah, we'll see how many drivers actually turn up. Currently we have 9 in the server, 12 are registered, so hopefully we can reach the 10. Obviously there are always a few drivers who don't show up for the races, which is unfortunate, and we want to avoid that, but yeah, we will see if we can actually reach the number 12 today. So let's see what times we can set. We see here Florian Braun, already somewhat of a regular. We've seen him in the last 2 races. In last week's race he had an unfortunate incident on the first lap, which cost him quite some time. He was in for potential victory. Even though we saw a Marcy Bella masterclass of domination from Toby Issinger last week, who is also here today, currently in P4. Obviously, no one has set a time yet, I think. Yeah, we will see what this race has in store for us today. Toby Issinger and Marcy Issinger also here today. Already talked about Toby. Marcy is not Marcy. What's his name? What was his name? Marius Issinger. 2 brothers from Germany, so yeah, fellow countryman of mine. And Marius is the older brother, I think. Toby won last week's race, so we'll see if he can pull off the same thing today. I think Marius had a bit of an unfortunate race last week. And we see our first time set by Florian Braun at 1:47.8, which is a pretty good time. The current best GT3 time, real world time, was from Marvin Kirchhofer in actually the same car that Gottschalk, who we are looking at right now, is driving. Also a good time with a 1:49.2 in a McLaren 720S GT3 Evo, and the best real world time in a GT3 car was a 1:46.116 by Marvin Kirchhofer in the 2023 Snetterton British Grand GT round. So let's see if they can top that today. Isinger Toby also with a really good time takes P1 for now with a 1:47.4. Let's see who can top that. Dan Lieschen, also a familiar name. We've seen him in the last few races. Robin van der Poel, the Dutch wall of last week's race, was a really good race as well. He defended behind almost the whole race, so there was quite some domination. Wesley van der Linden, also a familiar name, part of our team as well. And he has had some pretty good races as well. Not on the podium last week, sadly, but 2 weeks ago on Zandvoort he took P3. So hopefully it's going to be a close race today. Obviously we want to see some fights happening. Florian Braun now going for another round. He topped his time, I think, by another 3/10. So within 2/10 of Toby now. We see a pretty big gap between Toby Isinger and Hostry at the moment. Maybe Hostry had a bad lap, but and Robin van der Poel takes provisional pole with a 3,000th improvement on Toby Isinger. That is really close. So if Toby can set a better time, he can take pole back again. But a great lap by Robin van der Poel. Another familiar name, Gottschalk. We've seen him in a few of our races as well. And Hendricks. I don't recognize that name. Currently in P9, hasn't set a lap yet. So we will see if he can prove himself today. But so far we only see, except for Hendricks, we see only familiar names. And I know that all of those drivers are really skilled drivers. So it's gonna be an interesting race. Lieschen now with the best time with a 1:46.5. So we are getting close to the real world record. If anyone can improve 4/10 on that time, we might see a new GT3 world record set today. Obviously this is sim racing. I would reckon a little easier than real world racing. Hendricks still hasn't set a time yet. He went off the track there. So if he was on the fast lap, that's not gonna count, sadly. And he's in a Ferrari with the number 666. The devil's number. Let's see if it brings him luck or bad luck. 1:49.2 on his lap there. Obviously that doesn't count since he went off the track. But I think he is on time for a good lap. So Wesley van der Linden currently in P6, 2 seconds behind Leishan. Let's see if he can close that gap. Going around the last corner now. I was mistaken. And can he improve? He does improve by about 7/10, but that still only puts him in P5, and he does not have time for another lap. Probably not enough fuel to start this fast lap. Van der Poel and Van der Linden also in the pits. Got Charles Costry as well. And Robin Hendricks tries to set a lap time now. He has to, otherwise he's gonna start in P9. He was on time for a potential maybe P6. Might top the time of Kissinger. Can he manage it a little bit into the grass there? Hopefully it didn't cost him too much time. Can he do it? Now on the straight, watching the finish line. And he does manage to set a lap, and that doesn't put him in. I think maybe that it might be a software glitch, because it shows plus 4/10, but it still shows him in P9. So I'm not sure what happens there. I've been informed that that is a glitch from our software. So that is his actual time, and that puts him in P2, I think. That's a really good time. So props to Hendricks. That was a great drive there. Managed to get P2 on the last attempt. It was his last chance to set a lap time, and gets into P2. Can Florian Braun top his time now? We saw him get a little bit onto the grass there, I think. Around the last corner now. Can he do it? Ooh, it took a little bit of the grass there and then went onto the concrete, but he does not improve. So that is P3 for him. Obviously the software and the leaderboard still is glitched, but we see now he is in P3. Yeah, and let's see what this race has in store for us. And the drivers have to pick their setup now. The formation lap is gonna We're just around the last corner. So 30 seconds until they can start the formation lap. They're gonna try to warm up their tires, get their engines up, warm their brakes, because Snetterton has some heavy braking zones, especially into turn 1, and
10 seconds.
yeah, gonna be an interesting race. Well, I think I've said that already. Let's start with the racing order. So in P8, Hosry is still shown in P9. Hendricks. Yeah. So the racing order in P9 we have Ostrich, in P8 Gottschalk, P7 is Wesley van der Linden, P6 is Marius Issenger, in P5 his brother Toby Issenger, in P4 we have Robin van der Put, P3 is Florian Braun, P2 is Ron Hendricks, and P1 is Dan Lieschen. And they're approaching the start line now. Green flag, gonna be any moment now. And let's see who gets the best turn 1. Lap 1 is always gonna be a little bit of chaos. And we have rain coming up right now, actually. I hope no one is on dry tires, because that's gonna be a problem for them. And then Lieschen can keep his P1. Hendricks stays in P2. Brown falls back into P4. Issenger, Marius falls back into P7. So Van der Linden manages to get up into P6. And it's really close between all of them. Someone's getting into the grass there in the back. That was Wesley van der Linden. Ooh, that is close. And that is Issenger tries to get around van der Linden there. But can he defend? Onto the Bentley straight now? No, that was not it. Stays on the inside, tries to defend that corner. We saw Toby go a little bit wide there. Oh, they're sliding a lot. Wesley into the grass a little there. Now we see now from the front that Lieschen is still on P1. Van der Linden goes to the inside to defend that corner. And he goes a little wide there. Marius Issenger on the inside of his brother Toby. And he does get ahead there. And Toby is losing a lot of time right now. Falls back behind his brother. Now within 3/10. Are they gonna battle? We saw the Battle of the Brothers last week. And Toby goes into the pits probably to switch to wet tires. The forecast shows the rain is gonna continue for at least the next 10 minutes. You see there's gonna be some sunlight back in 30 minutes. But currently it is raining, so he was probably on dry tires. Switching to wet now. I am interested who else is on dry tires, because that is challenging on this circuit. The circuit is challenging even if you had the right tire set. But Marius now with no problem, and we see in the back there was Gottschalk going to the grass, probably on dry tires. And we see in the picture on the right there, Toby in the pits. How long is this pit stop gonna be? If he falls down one lap on lap 2, that's gonna be quite the gap to catch up. Ooh, and Van der Linden moves to the inside of Brown there and does manage to get ahead. A risky move. Brown still right on his tail, moves to the inside. And they're alongside now, Wesley on the inside and Toby going out of the pits now. Going very wide out of the pit exit. Hopefully not over the white lines. We saw that in Formula 1 last week, and we saw that also in our race last week. That's gonna get you quite a penalty. Brown's still on the back of Van der Linden now, and Gottschalk has actually left the service, so we are down to 8 drivers now in the race for another 1 hour and 56 minutes. So unfortunate for him. I didn't see if anything else happened. He went onto the grass. We saw that earlier. Maybe he crashed. We can actually see now Issenger has switched to wet tires. That's that blue dot next to his name. In P8 now, down a whole lap, 47 seconds. And Hostry in P8 is actually on dry tires. The grey dots means we currently have no data. So for a lot of the field, we don't know what tires they're on. But Hostry is on dry tires, and we see that he's struggling a lot. He's down 11 seconds from the rest of the field. And his best time is a 2 minute and 365 milliseconds. So possibly he wants to go into the pits now to switch to wet tires, because that is, yeah, with dry tires on a rainy circuit, it's gonna cost you a lot of time. He's still losing time right now. And in P8 we have Toby Issenger trying to catch up to the field now. He's already made up 3 seconds only on this lap. So it looks like he can close that gap. Let's see how fast he can do it. If any other driver is gonna go for a pit stop. I reckon they will, because yeah, the rain is gonna continue for 10 minutes. And yeah, you're just gonna go off the track. But if the rain stops in 30 minutes, if it actually does, obviously British weather, you never know. It's always gonna be rainy. So yeah, typical British weather today on Snetterton. And that is Brown right on the back of Van der Linden. Goes a little bit wide on that corner. Now onto the start-finish straight, the Senna straight. Obviously named after Ayrton Senna. And Van der Linden goes a little bit to the inside there to defend that corner, but Brown had no intention of challenging him there. So hang back, stay safe. And his best time is a 1:54.9. I reckon he's on wet tires. But yeah, with the rain stopping in 30 minutes, we might see them all come into the pits around the same time to switch to dry tires. Because wet tires on a drying circuit, you can drive them for a little while, but after a while they're gonna be way too hot. You're gonna lose a lot of time. And Brown actually braking too hard there. And I think there was Issenger on his back there, because I don't think that's Leishon. No. Yeah, out of the time to challenge Brown. 1 second behind. Maybe he can catch up. A little bit of the curb there. The curb's gonna be deadly in the rain. And there's a lot of rain. Luckily no standing water on the track. Marius is having some troubles. We saw him slide a little there. Ooh, and Brown actually going over the curb a little. Marius now right on his tail. He goes to the inside to hopefully get ahead on that corner, but he doesn't manage to. Again on the inside, he does not want the drag there in the corner. It's challenging enough. Falling back a little again. And that is Brown going over the curbs again, losing quite some time. Marius Issenger now in striking distance. Is he gonna go for an overtake in the next corner? He stays behind, gets that drag. Now 2/10 between them. He does not. And Brown actually goes way too wide, goes onto the grass. Can he recover from that? Go a lot over the grass there. And that cost him 4 whole seconds. So 3 seconds behind Marius now. And Hostry is still 14 seconds behind on dry tires on a wet circuit. But Marius now with almost a 4-second gap on Brown. So yeah, that was... He baited him to go off the track there. Brake too late. He didn't even go for an overtake. He stayed behind him, but Brown just braked too late, got onto the grass. And then, yeah, it's hard enough to recover from the grass in dry conditions, but in wet conditions even harder. You have no traction at all. So quite the opposite of full grip. We're following Robin van der Put now. The Dutch wall. Nobody can pass him. A beautiful livery. I really like that. I really like that. Yeah, pink look. We saw him last week in it as well. With the number 98. Right on the back of Hendricks now, who has had a little bit of a wobble. And he goes a little wider. Van der Put takes that corner really narrow. Right on his tail now. Hendricks gets a better exit. Can Van der Put recover from that? Onto the start-finish straight again. Hendricks goes a little onto the grass there with his left tires. But Van der Put does not go for an overtake here. He's too far behind. Maybe in the next corner he managed to recover about 1/10. They're really using all of the track there. You can see them right next to the grass, even a little bit on the grass for Hendricks on the center straight. Ooh, and Van der Put takes the corner way narrower than Hendricks again. And now into the next turn. Again, Hendricks goes very wide. But Van der Put goes a little onto the grass there. He can't manage to get ahead. He almost had him there, but Hendricks stays ahead. Van der Put taking a lot of the curb there. Obviously he can, that's still gonna count. A valid lap. And sliding on the exit there. Traction problems. Ooh. On the curb again, on the inside. And on the outside, but Hendricks took that as well. And he still can't manage to catch him here. Hendricks seems to have recovered his pace. And Leisham probably pulling another Marcy Bella masterclass of domination. He is 5 seconds ahead. Almost 6 seconds. Maybe I should explain where the Marcy Bella masterclass of domination comes from. 2 weeks ago on Zandvoort, Marcy Bella, absolute show of domination. He had lapped the entire field at one point. And last week we saw that as well from Toby Issinger, who is currently still in P8, but he has recovered almost 30 seconds of pace on Hostry at least. So he's 18 seconds behind Hostry now, still just completely struggling on those dry tires, and he's 20 seconds ahead. And hopefully we can take a look at the race start now. So let's take another look. We see Leisham going all the way to the left there to block Van der Put. Van der Put trying to go around the outside of Hendricks there. The best race start I think was from Van der Linde. He gained a lot of positions. He gained 4 positions just on the race start. So let's take a look at the race start again from his perspective. Already passing one driver there. I think that was Marius Issinger. And that is Braun next to him now. Yeah, just on the inside there, nails the braking. I think a little lockup, but he managed to recover from that. Stays on the inside here and passes Braun going onto the grass there. But luckily doesn't spin out. That can happen really quickly. And another overtake by Van der Linden into E4. And that, yeah, going into the grass there from Braun opened the door for Van der Linde to overtake him on the next corner. And we are on board with Van der Linden, who is right behind Van der Put. You can really examine those brake lights. Ooh, a little bit of traction loss there. Wesley in the Ferrari 296 GT3. It is It is a good car for that circuit. Pretty close driving from P2 to P5 there. Marius Issenger behind Van der Linden. He's gonna look for a way to overtake him. There seems to be none yet. 4/10 between them now, but no chance here. Except if Van der Linden goes too wide, which he doesn't, he just completely... It even takes a little bit of that inside curve, which is okay. It's a pretty low speed corner, so the curves are not gonna kill you. He's getting a little bit now. Better exit off the next corner and gliding on the braking zone there. Goes wide. Wesley still completely... That was a great corner from him. Takes the curb now. And Marius is closing in right on his tail now. Wesley goes a little onto the grass on the inside there. And Marius went a little wide on the entry, but he still nailed that corner. Still right behind him. Can he overtake him on the straight now? He's gonna be right behind him. Yeah, we see them now. But still no chance there. Oh, that's Van de Put in the grass there. Oh my god. Oh my god. Hopefully we can see what happened to him. Probably braking on the curb. At least that's where he stood. That will make sense to me. But we'll hopefully get a replay of what happened. Because that cost him 2 positions. He is behind Marius now. But he managed to stay in front of Brown, who obviously went into the grass. We saw that earlier. And we're looking at Toby Issenger now, who I think has closed in on Hostry here. Yeah, he's right on his back, and Hostry, yeah, on those dry tires. Absolutely no chance on the braking here. But hopefully, I mean, maybe he can recover all his time loss once the rain stops, which is going to be in about 10 minutes. We're already 15 minutes into the race. And Toby sliding actually a little there. We see a lot of sliding today. On the rain, it's always going to be like that. But yeah, he has already recovered 45 seconds, so that switch to wet tires was definitely the right move. And he's going to want the rain to continue. Because, yeah, he doesn't want to switch off his wet tires too soon. So, if the track is gonna stay wet for another 20 minutes maybe, it's gonna be prime time for the first pit stops. Everyone's gonna have to take 2. There's still a 2 at Toby Issenger, which is, yeah, it makes sense because the pit window has only opened 2 minutes ago. So from now on, all the drivers can pit and actually clear one of their 2 mandatory pit stops. But that pit stop from Toby was before that mark, so it's not gonna count. They can still go into the pits and change tires, refuel, repair damage. But yeah, it's not gonna count to their mandatory pit stop. And we are on board now with Leishan. Was still 6 seconds ahead, so he can't really pull much more of a gap. He's gonna want Hendricks and Van der Linden to fight in the back. But they're also 4 seconds apart, and Van der Linden is busy with Marius Issenger, so that's not gonna happen. But Leishan can maintain his gap for now, which is good. And a 147.3 on his last lap. But we are looking at Van der Linden now, who after Van de Put went into the grass and spun out, is now in P3. But can he defend his position from Marius? He took a better exit now. 6/10 between them. Really hugging that inside curb. I think they both took that corner really well. Marius Issenger closing in. Is it gonna be enough? It's not gonna be enough for an overtake, that's for sure. Can he get a better exit? He closed another 10th. Braking later than Van der Linden there. and he is still about the same gap behind him, so both are about on the same skill level, and Van der Linden actually a little bit of a slide there. We're looking at the inside view from Marius now, who is gonna want to overtake him because he's stuck behind him at the moment. So Van der Linden also going with that Van der Put masterclass of defending. Again, to explain that, Van der Put on last week's race on Laguna Seca just defended the whole race from behind, and nobody could pass him. Only with an undercut did Weber later manage to overtake him. You can watch that race again. We still have it on our YouTube channel. We just go to live and then to Laguna Seca. But right now we're looking at Marius, who's really got to try to overtake him. There he's within 2/10 now. And a little bit of sliding on the exit there. That's gonna cost him a bit of time. We can't get alongside him now, which he's gonna want to overtake in the next corner, because otherwise it's gonna be challenging. Even though it is a heavy braking zone on the rain there. Gonna have to be very careful. A little bit of a slide again from both. Oh, and Marius just completely spins out. He lost it on the exit, probably went onto the curb, and now into the wall. It's gonna be a lot of damage. He's gonna have to hold his brakes there, and luckily Van der Put managed to evade him and moves up into P4, sorry. I mean, he was on P3, then he spun out and fell down into P5, and now Marius, really unfortunate. He was on the accelerator too early there on the exit. He was right on the back of Van der Linden, but obviously the pressure of that fight is gonna force mistakes at some point, and that is quite some damage we see on this front there. So hopefully not too much to force his first pit stop, which isn't gonna be too dramatic, since it's gonna clear one of his 2 mandatory pit stops. And we see him going to the grass a little there, but it is gonna be probably cost him some time. And I mean, obviously he can elect not to repair the damage if he goes for his first pit stop. But yeah, we'll have to see how much that damage impacts him. Yeah, there was a lot of speed there when he went into the barrier. We're looking at Legion now. We actually lost a bit of time on Hendricks. Hendricks, a new name and already fighting for the win. He's 5/10 behind. We see him now. We saw him from Legion's view go around the corner there. And in P3, Van der Linden now under no pressure anymore from Marius. And hopefully he can, get some more pace. Marius with a lot of damage, and Florian Braun right behind him. Hopefully Marius can recover those times or cross the finish line now. Let's see if he can. Yeah, we'll see at the end of this lap if he has really lost that much pace. And behind him is Toby, who's actually going to the pits again. So 2 pit stops, he managed to get up into P7 again after his pit stop on lap 2. Yeah, he started on dry tires and then went in to change to wets. He's gonna change to dries again because the rain has stopped and the track is gonna dry. And he goes for his second pit stop. That is Van der Linden. Now with a 6-second gap on Van der Put. Can he maintain that gap, and can he close the 7-second gap to Hendricks in front? We will see. The fastest lap we actually see from our leader, Legion, with a 1:53.195. So that is a good lap for a rainy day. But the track is drying now, so they're gonna have to return to their dry pace over the curb there. And Toby Islinger coming out of the pits now. Down in P8 again. Going over the white line there. And that tire was completely over it. We learned in F1 that's too much. But hopefully I never want to see penalties handed out. I want everyone to race clean. But let's see if the stewards want to penalize that, if they even saw it. And yeah, but no one is in fighting distance with each other now. So let's look at some replays, shall we? That is Robin van der Poel. Oh, that's what caused him to spin out. Too fast on the accelerator, on the exit there. Did not go over the curb, but yeah, just complete traction loss and went into the grass. Luckily, no barriers there. So not a track like the Nürburgring or Zandvoort with the barriers really close at all times. And we see from Wesley van der Linden who probably was really happy about that. And that is the crash from Marius Issenger. Also benefiting van der Linden in P3 because now he doesn't have him breathing down his neck anymore. But yeah, no way for him to save that. Luckily didn't clip Marius there. Marius luckily didn't clip van der Poel there, because that would have been an unsafe rejoin, and that would have been a big penalty. I mean, the crash is gonna be enough of a penalty already, so he doesn't want that added to that. And yeah, Toby Issenger switched to dry tires. Hopefully, we'll see if that was the right decision, because the track is drying. We don't have any rain forecast for the next 30 minutes at least. We will see how fast the track is gonna dry, because it is a pretty cold day. Not a lot of sunshine as we see, so typical British weather. But yeah, that seems to have been the right decision. He is recovering some pace, as it seems, but he is a full lap down behind the leaders. Gonna be challenging. But everything can happen in every race, and he is a really skilled driver. He won last week's race with an absolute domination, but maybe that was just his circuit. The track looks like it's drying fast, so we will see if any other drivers are gonna go for a pit stop soon. It would be a pretty early one for the first pit stop clearance, because we still have 1 hour and 34 minutes, just past that marker, on the clock. So since they have to take 2 mandatory pit stops, if they go for about equal stints, the prime pit stop times are at 1:20 and 40 minutes. So if they go for it now, it's going to be an early first stint. But if the track is drying too much and they can't handle the wet tires anymore, Van der Poel going in complete S lines there, probably to warm tires. And Marius Issenger with Brown right behind him. And Brown is gaining a lot of time on him. Obviously, Marius with that huge damage on the front. We'll probably see them fighting within the next 2 laps. I'm looking at the current paces. Probably even on the next lap. Yeah, we see already there in that last corner, the racing line is drying fast. It's sad that we don't have more data on the tires. We're working on that. The production team behind the scenes is doing a really good job. We have the pit stop counter for the first time this week, as well as those tire informations. And also our weather forecast has been fixed. We had some problems with that in the past. Yeah, you see the difference between the racing line and off the racing line there. Racing line's driving fast. And Hendricks with the fastest lap now. You see on the leaderboard there. Pretty short leaderboard. Sadly not a lot of drivers here today. But the track is a really difficult one. Not a really common one. So it is understandable. And Florian Braun now is losing time again, actually, on Marius. Obviously, we see him struggle a bit more here. Went took a lot of that last curb. And he is actually still 2 seconds between him and Marius Issenger. A lot of that curb is again and even a little over the grass. Not really advantageous to your lap times. Again. So I reckon he is on wet tires if I'm looking at this. Those are gonna deteriorate fast. Oh my god, those English words. My German tongue can't handle that. I'm trying my best here. So Marius is... Yeah, he seems... Damage doesn't seem too great. I think he can manage with that. So probably doesn't want to repair that because that looks like at least 20 seconds of repair time. Obviously, the more damage you have, the more time it's gonna cost you. And Obi has a time penalty. Also a new feature of our leaderboard. In P8 we see that. Some time penalty now. Hopefully we can see what it's for. But we are looking at the unleashing still. So it looks really slow actually if I'm looking at this. I can't hear the motor at all. Now I can hear it. Looks like he's lifting and coasting here. That is a great view. Yeah, really on the inside there, over the curb on the outside here. And I've just been informed that Obi Issenger, who just takes the fastest lap of the race with a 150, now taken back by the Unleashin. So with a 150.8 and now by Hendricks. So we see that the track is drying because the laps are getting faster and faster and faster. And yeah, I've been informed that Toby Issenger has a 5-second time penalty. So hopefully we can see what it's for. But we have a replay for him that is not about the penalty. So let's take a look at that first, and then hopefully we can get one of the penalty. Ooh, that inside curb. Yeah, too wide on the exit of the first corner there. And then no position to take that second one. Goes on the inside curb. Yeah. I think he managed to avoid that bumper curb, the big one. But still, that put him into the grass. On the curb, you're gonna have no braking power. And yeah, that cost him some time again. But he, again, is within 15 seconds of Hostry. But that doesn't mean a lot, since Hostry is almost a minute down from Brown. Yeah, we'll see what this race still has in store for us. I reckon Toby has enough pace to recover to probably even the podium. I mean, he had the fastest lap for a while. But we're currently looking at Hendricks and now Wesley van der Linden. But you see between those two, almost 2 seconds on the fastest lap. And that is Hostry going into the pits now for his first stint. About 7 minutes early, if you're going by the pit stop strategy I explained earlier, but of course we don't know what the strategy is. There's a lot going into the strategy. Obviously tire management, fuel. Oh yeah. And van der Linden has actually lost quite some time on Hendricks, now 13 seconds almost behind him. And that puts him into a 18-19 second gap from the leader. Yeah. And now we have a replay on that penalty. Yeah, that was the crossing the pit lane. We saw that on the broadcast as well. I've talked about it. Going over there. Don't do that. That's gonna cost you it's not worth it. It's gonna give you a penalty, 5 seconds. We saw that in F1 as well, through the viewers who are watching F1 for Max Verstappen. And yeah, we have the same rules here, so that's why Toby Islinger has a 5-second time penalty. Completely avoidable. Just have to stay focused even on pit exit. Have to watch out to not get into the way of any cars coming up behind you, because you're gonna be slower. But you also have to pay attention to the white lines. And Legion going a little wide on that corner. 5-second gap between him and Hendricks now. But he's maintaining that gap. Probably nursing his tires. He doesn't have to push. 5 seconds is a comfortable gap. But Hendricks is definitely some competition for him. He has the fastest lap at the moment. But we are already seeing times below the 150 mark. So those are approaching the qualifying times. And we are improving every lap. But not a lot of close racing today, sadly. We had a lot more of that last week, but obviously with about 20 drivers less on the circuit and a really long circuit, the second longest in the country, it's gonna come to that. And the rain at the start also brought some chaos into that. We saw a few crashes as well, but hopefully we can get some more close racing later on. We actually have that here now between Brown and Marius Istinger. We've talked about them in the past. Marius Istinger with that huge damage on that spin that sent him into the barrier, and he did manage to maintain his 2-second gap to Brown, but now he is caught up. Sadly, we didn't see what happened there, if he spun or anything like that, but I don't think so, because on this circuit, when we've seen some spins, they cost them a lot of time. Brown is really struggling to keep all 4 tires on the circuit. I like that view from both sides. Ooh, and Marius is just struggling on the accelerator here. We see him struggling a lot with oversteer, hugging that inside curb. Even took a little bit of the bumper curb. Brown is definitely in the better car to take curbs. And Van de Poel is in the pits. We can't see the leaderboard right now, but I have another software. So he's going for his first pit stop. We see that now. Where is he gonna come out? Can Toby get ahead of him? That would be a good indicator of how far he is behind the rest of the field. He has, of course, served his first pit stop already. And still close fighting between Brown and Istinger here. And Van de Poel is coming out of the pits now. If he can get in front of Istinger, he can probably defend that. He has no problem with defending, and he stays within the white lines. He has listened to us and actually went very wide as well as Marius here. Went very wide on the exit, and Brown is gonna want to strike on that. He does not manage to get ahead yet. Goes on the curb and onto the grass. It's always that corner for him. He's always going into the grass there. But I mean, it doesn't cost him too much time, so it is okay. He stays behind for now. Going over the curb as well. He wants to force an overtake on Istinger now, who is gonna look at his rear view mirror the whole time. He has to stay focused. They both took the same line now. Nobody can pull any kind of gap or close the gap. But Braun has that drag now. 3/10 between them now. And Marius does manage to keep his gap. It looked for a while to me like he took that a little too wide, like Braun did now, but he's going for late apex for a better exit. Going really wide again. And Marius keep it on the track. And he managed to stay ahead, going really wide now. And that's gonna be the chance for Braun now. He's right on his tail. They're gonna wanna watch out on the braking. Yeah, Braun brakes a little earlier, and he is alongside him now almost. Going on the outside, now switching back, but yeah, Marius took that really well. He is defending with everything he has. Going to the inside, we saw that. Or closing in. Marius moves to the inside. And now gets a little bit of a better exit, but is it enough to break the drag from Braun? That is so close between them. Oh no, going a little wider there. Going over the curb a lot more than Marius. And Marius on the start finish straight now. Can he get that drag? Is it enough to pass him? He has to get alongside him, otherwise it's gonna be difficult to overtake here. He does not get alongside. Marius takes that well. He stays on the inside. He really hugs that inside curb. And he takes it really narrow again. So he really is defending well. He's using all of the track. Going very narrow here again. Marius takes a lot of the curb and a little bit of the grass again. Does not manage to get ahead yet. Oh, and Marius sliding a little bit on the brakes here. But Braun does not manage to exploit that. That is some intense racing right now. Braun going wide and taking that inside curb. And Marius actually managed to gap him a little bit again. About 1 second now between them. 8/10 now. And Braun struggling on the braking zone. But now gets a better exit out of that turn. They're really... The one makes a mistake, the other loses his advantage in the next one. Or, well, Marius just defends well. Goes a little wider here, but Braun is also going wide. He has to brake early, because he does not want to go into the back of Marius. He obviously doesn't want that either. But that would be on Braun. So that would give him a penalty. Still no chance to overtake him here, or maybe was a little wide on the first part of that turn. This is real racing. Ono takes that a little wider at the entry again. He does it for that turn all the time. See him trying to get that drag. He goes to the inside but does not manage to get ahead. He was probably not expecting him to overtake there, but he does luckily stay ahead. Over the curve on the inside. Interesting to see that we haven't seen any pit stops except for Van der Poel and obviously Toby Isinger, who switched from dry to wets and now back to dries. Either they were driving on dry tires in the rain, or they are on wet tires now. And Marius isn't a little bit defensive here. He still does that really well. Practiced his defending probably. And Van der Linden goes into the pits. Ooh, and that is really close. One is going a little bit to the inside, to the outside. To hopefully avoid Isender if he spins. And now onto the center straight again. Is it enough? Is the drag enough to get alongside? Again, probably not. Now on the braking. Both take that practically the same. One a little more narrow on the exit. Nobody's making mistakes here. They're both clinical. And is Van der Linden gonna come out in front of Van der Poel? Otherwise the undercut is gonna work. Van der Poel has the fastest lap. But can he manage to get alongside? You see Van der Poel now coming up on the center straight. But Van der Linden is out of the pits and is ahead. So Van der Poel can't use his defending. And he's gonna want to attack him instead. And he's gonna have to. 2 seconds between them. 2.5. Can he close that gap? He is the fastest on the circuit at the moment. Even though there's only 8 of them. House Street 2 laps down from the leaders. Really struggling. Van der Poel takes that inside curve. Using really all of the circuit, going over the white line there. He does not manage to close the gap at the moment. We're looking at Braun and Marius Issenger again. Bro, Marius now in P3. And they're both going into the pits at the same time. Oh my god. Did Braun flip the back of Marius Issenger there? Collisions now disabled in the pits. Who gets a better pit stop? Is Marius going to repair his damage? Probably not, because that would put him way behind Braun. Are they gonna change tires? Are they just gonna refuel? Looking at Van der Poel and keeping the two of them in the picture-in-picture on the right there. That is really close. Both into the pits at the same time. I would reckon Braun just didn't want him to undercut. So I just went into the pits with him. Maybe we can see a replay of them going to the pits again. Because I didn't quite catch that. And Braun does manage to get ahead out of the pits first now. So the strategy worked. Marius still in the pits. So it looks like he's repairing his damage. Even though it seemed to work out for him, but maybe he's gonna be a lot faster without that. We saw him fighting with Van der Linden without it. And Leichel and Hendricks are also in the pits at the same lap. Hendricks inside of Marius Issenger there. And that's obviously just the game. So their pit boxes are right behind each other. Van der Poel actually, it looked like he clipped that outside curb there. That might just have been a game glitch again. Van der Linden now in P3. Has he managed to get ahead of the two? Probably not. 30-second gap at the moment still. And Leishan is coming out of the pits again. And now Hendricks as well. So Van der Linden is gonna stay in P3 for the moment, but I think that's everyone with their first pit stop already. So all of them a little late again, actually. So going for a longer first stint. And we're keeping the current order. Leishman actually managed to widen the gap between him and Hendricks. Hendricks, the first timer with a monster race at the moment. P2 with a lot of, with a big gap to Van der Linden, but also quite a big gap to Leishman. And our picture is bugging at the moment. And we're looking at Van der Linden with the Van der Poel right behind him. Actually managed to gain a little bit of time. About 2 tenths. It's now within like 1.5, 1.6 seconds of Van der Linden. And he still has the fastest lap with a 1:48.4. Well, 0.3992, but that's basically a 1:48.4. And Van der Linden about 4 tenths slower with his best lap on the last one. Both going over the curbs there. Van der Poel actually moving to avoid going to the grass again, as he did there, well, basically the whole race here up to now. And now the gap is down to 1 second. So Van der Poel with a better lap at the moment. But Van der Poel took the better last turn. Now again 1.3 seconds. Ooh, Van der Poel's really trying to save that from the grass again. That is some erratic movement, but he does keep it on the track. He has complete control of his car. We saw that last week with his defending. He's just absolutely cold there. Toby Issinger recovered to P5 after his lap 1 or lap 2 pit stop. He has quite the pace. His best lap is a 1:49.01, which is probably gonna be enough for a podium if you place it right. But a lot can happen still. And right on his back there is Braun, who did manage to get ahead of Toby's brother, but now he has the other brother in front of him. Can he overtake Toby? And we have a replay on Braun from Toby, I think. Who goes wide on the turn. Braun now gonna try to take advantage of that. Really on his tail there. Goes a little bit narrow on the exit there. He's right on his tail now, and he has the drag. Can he get ahead? Can he get alongside first? Not yet, at least. Toby going really to the outside there to defend that. And he does manage to defend that. But that is intense. Braun struggling with both of these injuries. Both going a little bit over the grass now. And Braun goes wider than Toby in that corner. Gonna get him a speed advantage. But obviously he has to cover more way. Toby still has that time penalty. It's just 5 seconds. And I don't reckon they're gonna finish the race with that close of a gap. Braun right on the tail there. And Toby brakes later. Braun has to obviously brake a little earlier to avoid a crash, because that's not gonna benefit him. Both going really narrow here. Toby a little wider on the exit. Braun takes the corner entry narrow, but the corner exit wider. And Toby can't get rid of him. He can't pull a gap. And Marius Issinger has had a 30-second stop and go penalty. We'll see that on the leaderboard. So hopefully we can see what that was for. And he went into the pits to serve that. That's gonna put him down into P8, I think. Really unfortunate. Speeding in the pit lane. Ooh, that is unfortunate. Let's take a look. Oh, that one bugged again, I think. I, I think I, I think it looked like Brown may have pushed him there. I'm not familiar with the rules there actually. If that's then that then should be a penalty for either of them. No, he did not touch him there. Yeah, just Marius was just too fast into that. No contact there. Maybe try to avoid that contact. Great Cam here. Yeah, he sped up again a little before the pit entry. It is unfortunate. It was just to avoid the contact there. But he did speed in the pit lane and there was no contact, so he wasn't pushed in there. Yeah. Unfortunate. But he served it and he's still in P7. Austria is really just all the way back there, no way to compete with them. Braun and Toby Issenger is still battling it out. Braun just can't get ahead of either of the Issengers. The only way for him to overtake Marius was in the pit lane. Ooh, and Toby goes very wide there. Braun hugs the inside line. Toby with the speed advantage. Sliding a little bit on that turn as well. And on the exit. Went a little wider than Braun. Braun goes to the outside. Switches back to the inside. Very late apex. But Toby still stays ahead. He managed to recover his skills. Went very wide on that one turn. Then a little bit of oversteer in the other one. You see now the inside view from Braun's car. That is intense. I was waiting for a chance like that the whole time, but then when it actually came, he did manage to exploit it. Toby again looks like he is sliding a little on that corner. And on the exit there again, both over the curb, basically taking the same line. One's gonna have a little bit of drag there. He doesn't necessarily want that in the corners. Now a heavy braking zone, slow corner. Braun takes a earlier apex than Toby. Now onto this center straight. He is 3/10 behind. Can he get enough drag? And there's rain again. There's another 10 minutes of rain. Or, I mean, we only have current and then in 10 minutes and 30 minutes, so maybe it will last for 20 minutes. But yeah, the rain is bringing a lot of variety into this. So, gonna be interesting is if anyone else is gonna go for another pit stop. And we see now everyone has switched to dry tires. But is the rain heavy? Is it light? Is it gonna... I mean, might see some crashes or some pit stops. Is it gonna be enough to force them to go on dry tires? Braun losing a bit of pace now. Sliding on the exit. And in the curb. In the corner. That looked like a snappy turn-in. And we're looking at Leishan in P1. 12.5 second gap. Behind him, Rob Hendricks. Also, a great race from him. I'm still quite shocked that the first time it's doing that good of a race. And Braun a little bit over the grass there. At least looked a little wonky. So using all of the track, sliding a little bit on the turn in, but so did Toby. Do that long right-hander into the heavy braking before that low turn. And Toby is going into the pits for his third pit stop today. And gives the position to Braun, who is now in P5, Toby in P6. Hopefully he didn't speed on the pit entry. Slide a little to the right there. Maybe that was because he had too much time. And he also has to serve his 5-second time penalty. Hostry is also in the pits. We saw that from Toby's view. And then Leishan, 13-second gap on Hendricks, who had another 14 seconds on Van der Linden. But everything still can happen. Cameraman having a bit of a problem there. And Van der Linden is actually the only one with a car somewhat behind him. Van der Poel within 2.2 seconds of Van der Linden. And Van der Linden goes a little wide on that first turn there, but he did manage to recover that, and still about a 2-second gap between them. But that looked scary for a while. But we are seeing that the times are getting longer again. We have to be more careful now, as we are approaching the halfway mark. Only 1 hour to go in this race. And Toby and Hostry switched to dry tires. Hostry does not want to do that again with dry tires in the rain. And they both served both of the pit stops. So yeah, they are gonna have another 30 minutes of potential dry conditions. Maybe even more. But the rain is really bringing a lot of variety in here today. We're seeing a lot of pit stops, especially from Toby Issenger. And we are halfway through the race now. Every driver must have gotten the notification from their engineers now. Obviously that engineer doesn't give you a lot of information. We actually have an AI engineer, or AI race engineer and assistant on our website available, Full Grip Vision, who is gonna give you a lot more insight than that. So if you're interested, check it out. We have some, I would call it reports that does improve lap times. It helps a lot. So yeah, maybe give it a go, try it out. There's a free version for it with a bunch of features. But let's focus on this race for now. Van der Linden around the slow turn. That is the Murray's corner. Now onto the Senna straight. Went a little wide on the entry there and over the curb, on the over the inside curb, and we saw him sliding a little there. Oh, and a little scare for Van der Poel on the exit. He went onto the grass and then we saw him sliding. Obviously he is on dry tires at the moment, so those scares can turn into a spin really quickly, and that was beneficial to Van der Linden, who now has a 2.3, 2.2 second gap again on Van der Poel. Oh, and Braun went into the grass again. That's the second time today. Hopefully we can get a replay of what happened there, but if I'm looking at it, I would bet my money on, he went onto the grass on the exit and then just completely spun out, and that cost him a lot of time. 30-second gap now to Van der Poel from him. But luckily there was again no barrier there, and we're looking at Rob Hendricks. They're all pulling 153s now, but they do manage to keep it on the track with dry tires. Toby Issenger and Hostry are the only drivers at the moment with wet tires, and they both served both pit stops. So they would want the rain to continue. Everyone else wants the rain to stop in 10 minutes and the track to dry as fast as it did before. And we see Marius Ischinger going to the pits again. He does not have a 30-second stop and go to serve now. And Toby Ischinger there unlapping himself. And Dan Leischen behind him. Now he let him through. Sportsmanship. But I think he is still... No, he's not a lap down anymore. Well, he is. That's still Leischen behind him. But Toby is doing way faster laps at the moment. 4 seconds. Since he is on wet tires and everyone else is on dries. So he has the advantage as long as the race continues. As long as the rain continues. And his brother coming out of the pits now in P7. Leischen dominant, glued to the track. You see a little bit of a slide there, but that still looks very controlled. Really using all of the track right on the white line. Nails the braking. Oh, well, it goes a little wide there, but there was still no danger there. Even with dry tires on a wet circuit. A little wide. A little wide into Montreal. We're looking at Wesley van der Linden again. Who still has Van der Put breathing down his neck. A 1.2 second gap. That has been closer between those two. But he's still gonna feel the pressure. Especially with, say it with me, dry tires on a wet circuit. Also into Montreal now. Van der Put takes a lot narrower than Van der Linden here. Now it's the other way around. Van der Put sliding on the exit there, but he does manage to save it. 1 second behind him now. Ooh, and Van der Linden slides. Well, yeah, sliding on the braking there. Both sliding in the turn. But that allowed Van der Put to gain a little bit of time. And those names are so... they're not exactly the same, but Van der Linden, Van der Put. They're pretty similar names. Both sliding on the exit. But still managed to save it. It looks a lot less controlled than with Leischen though. Easing off the track. Rail braking to the turn that looked for a second like Van der Put was gonna spin out, but he does manage to keep it on track. Ooh, and Van der Linden now going way wider than Van der Put. He's right on his back now. There, can he get enough drag to close the distance a little more? It's pretty hard to overtake on the circuit, we've seen that. We haven't seen a huge ton of overtakes here. And Van der Linden going very wide again, he's struggling now with those tires. They're pretty old tires as well. And now Van der Put is the one to go wider to avoid a contact. But he does not manage to get any speed advantage and get ahead. Van der Linden still playing it relatively safe, going for a late apex here, and it works out. He's doing a little more of a gap there, we see on the left. Well, especially on the left. Again, both perspectives, and going for another late apex. Van der Put decides to really stay glued to that inside curb. That outside line obviously has more water, but might get you a little bit more grip. But you really gotta be in control there. But Van der Linden does that really well at the moment, going for late apexes at every corner. while Van der Poel stays, well, glued to the inside here. And he can't close that gap at the moment. Actually, Van der Linde is pulling more of the gap there, going actually a little onto the grass again. Oh, and now completely onto the grass and over the curb, no braking power into the grass on the other side. He doesn't have to pay attention for any upcoming drivers with only eight drivers on the circuit. Pretty hard to get an unsafe rejoin, but unfortunate for him. Again, we see overtaking is hard on the circuit, but spinning out isn't. Again, quite the difference of full grip motorsport as it stands on Wesley van der Linden's livery. And a Hornet there as well. A Wasp, a Bee, whatever you may call it. Yeah, that puts Van der Linden out of the podium and into P4. And that looked a little scary as well for a second. But he does manage to save that. It goes really wide again. Looked to me for a second like the brakes locked up. I'm not sure though. But he goes really wide. Has to loses quite some time again in that corner. Those lights on the corner goes over the inside curb and over the grass on the inside. And then too wide and over the grass on the outside. He is struggling a lot now. Probably the tires way too cool. A pretty cool day in general. British. Typical British weather. The rain is gonna stop in the next 10 minutes. It's pretty light rain, as we see here, so yeah, the dry tires still work. And let's take another look at that spin. Let's take another look what happened to him here. So he moves to the inside to defend that corner, even though Van der Poel is pretty far back. And then it just goes too wide. Can't manage to turn into the corner enough, and then actually goes over the big bumper curb. But luckily not into the barrier. That could have happened as well. But he held his brakes, which is the right thing to do. You have to do that per the rules. There was also the right call in that moment. And yeah, just into the grass, lost the position, lost a lot of time. About 8 seconds. But he is still in the race and with no damage. So it's not too bad. If he can recover his pace, he might recover the place. From P4 into P3, but I mean, he has done a phenomenal race. Either way, he started in P7 and is now up to P4. He was up to P3, so 4 seconds of gain, and we saw, I think there was Hostrich behind him there, behind Hendricks. And he just let him through. That's what we want to see. Blue flags, lets him through, and Hendricks does not have to fight with the back marker. Hendricks is gaining a little bit of time, but really, yeah, it's really just a little bit on Leishan, and there's a 9-second gap between them. Let's see what that in store for us. Sliding a lot there. Really struggling with those tires. And Toby Isinger goes for another pit stop now that the race is gonna... now that the rain is gone. And the sun... Yeah, the weather forecast says the sun might come out. If I'm looking at the sky here, it does not look like it. But... yeah, at least it's not raining anymore, so the track is gonna dry again. You will see that in 1 or 2 laps, the racing line just drying way faster, and Austri is also switching back to dry tires. Missed his pitbox there. Goes around Toby Isinger. He could drive through him. Collisions are disabled in the pit lane. And Van der Poel going in as well for his second stint. His second pit stop. And there is Van der Linden up into P3 again. Now the question is, can he do a faster lap than Van de Put again after he comes out of the pits. Otherwise, that's gonna be a not an over. It's not an undercut. He was ahead anyway. So, I mean, if Van der Linden can pull faster laps now and then come out ahead of Van de Put once he serves his second pit stop, then that's going to be a successful overcut. But we will see what happens. He looks pretty much in control of his car again. So that little scare of the... I just say it and then he clips the inside curb. Goes onto the grass a little wide out of that corner. But yeah, he looks much more in control than he did before. Hopefully he can get some good lap times now. Beck is gonna drive fast. And that is then leashing into the grass. Oh my god. He is still ahead of Hendricks though. Hopefully we can see later in a replay what happened. And a little wide on the Montreal corner. Robin Hendricks now can see him in front of him. And not just as a tiny blip in the distance. 4 seconds now. Who is going to be faster on the drying circuit? That's the kind of mistakes I was talking about. We're gonna hopefully see a fight between those two. Hendricks staying glued to the inside. But the gap remains about the same, 4 seconds from Hendrick to Leishon. But the crash, well, not the crash, the spin and going onto the grass from Leishon is gonna cost him some confidence. And we see that here, another spin, almost. He manages to save it, but that was close again. Yeah, going to the grass there will cost you quite some confidence into your car, into your driving abilities, into his Lexus. His Lexus looks pretty banged up on the left side there. Front looks okay, so does the rear. So probably hit something on the left side. Ooh. But it doesn't look like that damage is gonna affect his lap times. Because he does manage to maintain that gap to Hendricks. Now down to 3.8 seconds. We saw why that little almost spin. And hopefully he can regain his confidence, regain his pace in his Lexus. A little on the curb there. But it is looking good. He is again confident here. A really narrow corner. So a little wide there. And he actually has the fastest speed trap time with 248 kilometers per hour, as well as the fastest lap time at the moment. But we saw that earlier. Ooh, another spin! But he saves it again. But that is what Hendricks is hoping for. That is what's gonna cost him some time and what's gonna allow Hendricks to close the gap. Because on pure pace, they're about the same. Like, little onto the grass there, he's lost a lot of confidence in his Lexus. Maybe that spin was because of the damage, but it just looks like scratch paint to me. And I don't know what happened. And I've been informed by production that they have a little issue with the replays. so that's gonna take a few minutes, but then hopefully we can see what happened to Lesion and what caused his damage. Going over the inside curb, track looks like it dried. And we have, with 41 minutes on the clock, we have again rain in 30 minutes. Kobe, is he gonna go for his 5th pit stop of the race? Going a little wide there, but he does manage. That was still okay. Now 2 seconds between Lesion and Hendricks, living the inside curb. A late apex. Hendricks goes wide. Going for another late apex there, and I think that was Lesion into the grass. No, he's still on the track. Okay, that just looked like he went onto the grass. And we see it from Hendricks' perspective. 2-second gap. Looked a little unstable on the braking there. But it was okay. 2/10 lost now to Lesion. So 2.2 seconds between them. But he is currently 1.5 seconds faster per lap. That was just last lap, so... And Lesion's spin and going to the grass was two laps down. Let's see what kind of laps they pulled. Lesion actually with the exact same lap that Hendricks did last lap, and Hendricks with a little improvement. So they're pulling about the same laps at the moment. No chance yet for Hendricks to gain more time. He's a tiny bit faster, going wide now into Montreal. That might have cost him some time. We didn't see what Lesion did here. Really good. Really hugging that inside line now from Lesion. The Lex was actually not the best car for Snetterton. I mean, it's strong on exits, but it's pretty heavy. But maybe the balance of performance might have buffed it there a little. And it's, I mean, it works out for Lesion, so unless that going into the grass was down to the car, the Lexus seems to be working for him. Probably his main car leaning a lot into the curb. We see the suspension working here. Now we have the replay for what happened to Dan Lesion, what caused him to go into the grass, so let's take a look at it. That is the center straight. Yeah, just too wide there. I think he wanted to brake into that turn, and that was a lot of speed going into that curb. Yeah, just no chance for him to take that corner. I think he was just maybe too late on the brakes as well. But there was a lot of speed going into that barrier. Luckily he clipped it with the side, which is a little less damage. In real life that would be a lot more damage for his driver. Maybe some on the front. Yeah, that might be some damage, but he seems to be okay at the moment. But look at that, the game mechanics just scratching the paint there. Yeah, that would have probably been a race-ending crash, because yeah, that was like at least 70-80 kilometers per hour going into the barrier. And that was a tire barrier, so in real life that wouldn't have been just bouncing off like that. And Brown is in the pits now, serving his second stint. So just Van der Linden, Hendricks and Leishman now with another pit stop to serve. But I mean, we will see race in probably the next 20 to 30 minutes. So they might elect to go for a longer stint if they can allow themselves. If they have enough fuel, if the tires are gonna last. Brown now on dry tires. He will want to drive those last 10 to 20 minutes on dry tires in the rain again. Gasly going over the curb. There is a driver in front of him, and that looks like one of the Issingers, probably Marius or Toby. Definitely Ferrari though. And Wesley van der Linden going to the pits now as well to serve his second pit stop. Does he manage to get out in front of Van der Poel? That would have been a successful overcut then. 20 seconds now. Too close for Van der Poel. He will want to get ahead of there. Then he can use his defending skills in his Audi. With the number 98. Going into the center straight now. And yeah. No challenge. Van der Linden is still standing in his number 1 Ferrari. Going out of the pits now. And he's gonna come out ahead of Brown. With about 24 seconds behind him. A lot of gaps between the drivers are very big. And we're looking at Robin van der Poel in P3. That is a 1 place gain over the course of the whole race for him. He's qualified in P4, now on the podium. But currently the biggest winner of the race is Van der Linden. Even though he's just in P4, he qualified in P7, so that is 3 places gained. And that was on the first lap, on the first turn, I think even. He gained quite some places. He was on the inside there, we saw that earlier. Maybe we can see it later again. That's where he made up all those places. And the biggest, if we're talking about the biggest winners, we gotta talk about the biggest losers. Well, they're not losers, but biggest position loss over the course of the whole race. And that is Florian Braun going from P3 to P5. And Leishman, who we're looking at right now, still with penalties to serve. He maintained his position, as well as Rob Hendricks. They both qualified where they are right now in P1 and P2. And yeah, Leishman found his confidence again in his car. 3.3 second gap now between them. And Robin van der Poel qualified P4, currently in P3, unless he does some pretty till he gets a pretty heavy spin or accident now. That should be maintainable with a 17-second gap on Van der Linden. We're looking at right now, P4. Ostri behind him. Yeah, Peter Hostry. We've also seen him before, but he hasn't won a race yet or been on the podium, if I'm not mistaken. In P8, he's down 3 laps on the leaders in the number 11 Audi, but still, absolute props to him. He's sliding a little bit there. Still, my absolute props to him. everyone who finishes this race, even everyone who made it this far into the race, deserves my respect, deserves everyone's respect. And these 2-hour races in general are quite challenging. Yeah. That is Florian Braun in P5 in the number 224 McLaren. And yeah, he is, well, still not a loser, but the biggest position loss of the race, with going from P3 to P5. Let's drive one lap on board with him, going to the center straight now. And there was actually Hostry down, we saw that. We will hopefully see a replay of that. But we're staying on board with Brown for now. Doing a circuit around, doing a lap around the Snetterton circuit. We're on the Bentley straight now. Sorry for that little yawn there. That is the Nelson corner. That's a beautiful helmet there. And that is the bomb hole. Going into Coram now. Going a little wide here. And that is Murray's, is what this corner is called. And the start finish straight is the Senna straight. And Dan Leeshan going for his second pit stop. And that puts Rob Hendricks in P1 for the first time of this race. But can he manage to do a faster lap right now? The track has dried, the sun has come out for the first time this day. So yeah, it's gonna be gone in about 10 to 12 minutes. And we're gonna have a lot more rain then. And that is Leeshan coming out of the pits now. He still has the fastest lap with a 1:47.2. Hendrick's fastest lap was a 1:48.4. He has a 50-second gap now. Let's see if he can serve his pit stop fast enough. He could elect not to change tires and only refuel. And that's gonna cost him a lot less time, but then he'd also have to extend his already worn tires for another 27 minutes with about 15 minutes of rain. So yeah, interesting. He does not go into the pits yet. He wants to go for another lap. This one was good, a 1:48.7, or just 3/10 of his best lap. Let's see what Dan Leeshan in P2 can do this lap. Let's see what happened to Hostry, and then we'll go back to Dan Leeshan. Hostry we saw spin and go into the gravel while we were following Braun across the circle. Yeah, going to the grass there, and then the front left locked up. And then just going completely into the grass, no braking power. Yeah, going to the grass there, and then he can't brake there. And then going to the grass. Mate, you can't park there. And what is that view? Now we're back to what we want to see. Dan Leeshan with a 145, 154.5. It was also coming out of the pits doing that. So this lap we're gonna see what kind of times he's actually pulling. Going through Montreal. Now into the Palmer curve. Sorry. Still crazy that after his pit stop he's still in P2. So yeah, I mean Hendricks and Leeshan are pretty much on the same pace, but they are gapping the rest of the field completely. 22 seconds between Leeshan and Van der Poel. We'll see where Hendricks comes out. But the gap has closed a little bit, 52 seconds. Can he serve his pit stop faster than Leeshan could? Gonna be interesting. That'll put him in P1. So let's keep a close eye where we look where Leeshan is at the moment. Going down the Bentley straight into Brundle now. Now through Nelson. Now the bomb hole. Gonna be close. Or is it gonna be close? If Hendricks can finish his pit stop about now, he might stay ahead. Leeshan is going through Murray's now. And I think Hendricks is not gonna be able to pass him through the pits. So Leeshan manages to keep his P1 spot. But Hendricks also staying in P2. Still 17 seconds ahead of Van der Poel in P3. The Hendricks now with a about 4.6 seconds. 4.8 now. So that is quite the gap to Leeshan. If Leeshan can keep it on the track now, keep it safe. No more scares, please. Then he will take home that victory. 23.3 minutes to go. 0.5. And still the forecast is only showing rain in 30 minutes. So now we see the track darkening now a little bit. That we might see some rain. Still says good weather, or at least dry weather, for the next 10 minutes. Hendricks. And Leeshan going through the bomb hole now. No, that's Coram. Sorry, he's a lot more ahead than I thought. Through Murray's and onto the center straight. Rob Hendricks now going through Murray's. The gap is widening. And Leeshan is doing faster laps at the moment. A 147.7. So about 5/10 slower than his previously fastest lap. And Hendricks with coming out of the pits at 154.8. That was also a lot, not a lot, about 4/10 slower than what Leeshan did out of the pits. Going through Palmer. And Rob Hendricks is under investigation for something we saw from Toby Issinger earlier, crossing the white line on pit exit. That would obviously put all his P1 all his victory hopes into the dirt. Unless, of course, Leishon makes mistakes. Yeah, there was a little bit over there. Let's take another look. That's what the steward's gonna be thoroughly investigating. We know from F1 a little bit over is already enough. Toby Messenger, of course, was over by a lot. So we will see what the stewards are deciding. Is it going to be good for Hendricks or is it going to be good for Leishon? Onto the center straight now again for Leishon. And now Rob Hendricks over the finish line with a 1:48.3 on the last lap. It was actually his fastest lap of the race. But he is 1.4 seconds slower than Dan Leishon. And we are looking at Wesley van der Linden now. P4, 16.5 second gap to Robin van der Poel in P3. And he is currently doing a 1:47.9. It is good pace. It's about a second faster than Van der Poel did last lap. Now we see Brown again, 19-second gap to before Van der Linden, and he is doing a 1:48.077. So also pretty good pace, also about a second faster than Van der Poel. And back to Leishon now. Going through Nelson here. Now into the bomb hole. And through Coram. Now the last corner, Murray's. And what have the stewards decided? They have decided that Hendricks went over the white line and that it is worth a 5-second penalty. Let's take another look. So they have decided that that was enough for 5 seconds. That's what the rulebook says. You can like it or not, but you see there that his left tires did go over the line. You can be on the line, but not over it. So yeah, that was unfortunate for Hendricks, but it is what it is. It is what the rules say. So that's gonna add another 5 seconds to his time, unless he does another pit stop and clears it there. Then Leishon is pulling more and more of the gap. About 8.5 seconds between them now. And we are actually on lap 53 at the moment. From the leaders. See the front camera now. And we are currently going into Rundle and Nelson now again. The last few corners of the circuit. Let's take a look at Rob Hendricks again, who is just going into the start finish straight now. And let's ride along with him another lap. The front cam. So this corner called Richie's, first corner of the circuit, and then a hairpin corner of some sorts, Montreal. going into a long left-hander. That corner is called Palmer. Then a little straight there. That one has no name. Going into another pretty harsh left-hander, Agostini. And then another one, Hamilton. So this middle technical part wasn't part of the first Snetterton layouts. That was added later. And now that is the Bentley straight now. Really long straight. And going into that part where we've seen some spins, especially here in Brundle, going too wide here can cause you to go over the curb at Nelson and then into the grass. Luckily there's no immediate barrier there, otherwise we would have seen a lot more damage than we have. Those were just, the cars that went up there just went into the grass and lost quite some time but managed to recover. But so far we have only seen one person leave the race. That was Gottschalk in the first few laps. But all the other ones are probably going to finish this race. And I have huge respect for them, no matter where they're starting. And we've just heard the pit window has closed, but everyone has served their mandatory pit stops, or even more. Toby Issenger and Austria have served more than 2 pit stops. Maybe they're gonna go for another one when the race is gonna start in less than 10 minutes. So we will see the race end in the rain. We're looking at P3 Van der Put. Also a regular in our races. Van der Put has been P4 for our last race on Laguna Seca. I've talked about this earlier, but yeah, he has shown a masterclass of defending there. It was really, my heart was pounding during the broadcast. But he was, there was no going past him. The Dutch wall. And the same, the Dutch Minister of Defense. But yeah, sadly wasn't enough for a podium finish last week, but he did manage to get P4. And yeah, in the same Audi, same livery as last time. And the week before on Zandvoort, you could say his home circuit, he managed to finish on P5. Which is also a good finish. So yeah, obviously congrats for that one as well. But can he get his first podium today? That is the question. On the first week that I was doing the broadcast, now there's the race starting at 12 minutes. So 12 more minutes of heavy rain. We see that. Great camera shot here from the helicam. And everyone, I think, is on dry tires. Is someone going for a pit stop to switch to wets? I mean, you can extract a lot more pace out of wet tires than if you have to drive dries on a wet circuit. We've seen that from Toby Issenger earlier. But between E6, Toby Issenger, who I would reckon is the only one who would go for a pit stop. I mean, he's always switched between dries and wets. Between him and the leader, there's 1 minute and 46 seconds. So almost a full lap. That is that leader. And we see him there, Toby is under. He does not go for wet tires yet. We see the illusion going a little wide on the entry. Yeah, the track is getting wet now. Don't quote me on that. But there's still... It still seems to be drivable. And Lesion with another great lap on the last lap. The 148.1. But he was... The rain started once he was almost done with it. We're sliding a little bit there. We see it getting a lot more difficult. So it's gonna be... Yeah. Conditions are gonna only get worse now. The rain is heavy. And it's gonna stay for the last 10 minutes of the lap, of the race. 2 hours of commenting alone is really fucking with my tongue. Austria, I think, went off. But let's stay on Dan Lesion for now. Can he keep it on the track? He has, after his spin and another second gear, he still managed to again put a 15-second gap on Hendricks. Now with a much slower lap, so you can already see what the rain does. A 151.085. Already 3 seconds slower than his previously fastest lap. And now Toby Islinger lets him pass. It's going wide. Maybe that was intentional, maybe not. So he had unlapped him earlier. He had unlapped himself earlier. And that was close. Not that close, but he went into the grass. Messenger obviously a little stuck behind Lesion now. Going over the curbs there. The curbs are gonna get more and more dangerous. Yeah, we see them sliding now. Even Dan Lesion, who has been so in control of his car the whole race. That is P2 Rob Hendricks in the Ferrari. Ooh, it went a little bit too deep there, and again sliding on the corner exit. But the Lexus, a very good car out of the corners. And that is Toby Islinger going to the pits as I predicted. The race is too heavy. Gonna go for wets. And someone spawned there in the back, we saw that. And that is Postry again. Yeah, he is already 2 laps down, 3 laps now. He's been overtaken by Lesion now. But he still did a good race. Still my biggest respect to him. I could not do that. An unfortunate spin. Maybe we can get a replay of that. And Van der Linden also went off. There's gonna maybe be a chance for Brown now. Behind him. 12-second gap. Gonna get closing now. 8 seconds now. You see him down in the back there. And there is Toby Islinger coming out of the pits. And Toby Islinger has been passed by his brother. They're a lap behind Braun, who is behind them now. So we see some close racing now, even though that's a lap apart. Toby isn't there now. The only one on wet tires. 6 more minutes to go. Gonna be at least 4 laps. Or maybe about 4 laps. 4 laps of racing now. Looking at Toby Issinger, now 2 seconds behind his brother, Marius Issinger. But he has a lot more grip now. He is on wet tires, on a really wet circuit. And then Lishin also struggling here. The car looks a lot less stable than it did before. Yeah, a little... Even touched the curb just a little bit, but already has to correct there. And he's going wider. Rob Hendricks in P2. Going to turn 1 again. Also sliding there. Be really careful. Ooh, and someone... There was Robin Vanderput there, I think, in the back. Also sliding a lot on that exit. And Toby Issinger ahead of his brother now. Maybe we can get a replay of that overtake as well. We haven't had a lot of those. And Marius Issinger into the grass there. Went too wide. And Toby now ahead of Van der Linden. Well, not ahead, but he unlapped himself. Obviously, he has a lot more pace now. And we can take a look what happened to Van der Linden. What put him into the grass there. Yeah, just too wide on the exit. The left tires on the curb, right tires on the grass. So obviously no traction there, and then versus the accelerator probably still turned in a little, and then just completely, yeah, spins him out into the gravel. Not gravel, grass. Yeah, we see him there trying to correct. And he, great correction, honestly. He could have spun way more, could have lost way more time there, but he corrected as just like Dan Leeson did now. Yeah, you see that basically no traction at all, no grip. Going into the center straight, but he is still on the track. Now everyone's focus is just to survive. So that is the real drive to survive. Going really wide here. Very carefully into on the corner entry, and very careful on the accelerator as well. He waited until he was completely turned, let the steering wheel straight again until he pressed the accelerator. And here, you see that he pressed the accelerator a little too early and it was already spinning and had to correct there. That is really advantageous to Toby Issinger at the moment, who still is the only one on wet tires. But that was good for him that he went into the pits. Sliding all the time. No grip here at full grip motorsport. Yeah, basically drifting through that corner. But Hendricks doesn't seem to have it any easier. He does not manage to close that gap. Actually went over the track somewhere earlier. That lap isn't counting. Ooh, and that is Florian Braun off the track here. And there was Marius Issinger overtaking him again. But he also is a lap down. They're all struggling at the moment. Rob Hendricks, P2. Yeah. Turning a lot more than he was expecting once he presses the accelerator. A lot of standing water on the track as well, even on the racing line. And Toby isn't just gaining about 10 seconds every lap at the moment. But is it going to be enough to catch anyone? He's a lap down, 2 laps behind Dan Leeson. He's about 1 minute and 30 seconds behind P5, Braun, but 19 seconds ahead of his brother. Sadly, not a lot of really close racing today. We've seen some fights, but not really any overtakes. All of the fights were solved by either someone going to the pits or someone spinning out. But that's what happens sometimes as well. Then Leash, yeah, almost no grip on the braking. They're going way too wide, but luckily not into the grass. That would have cost him quite some time. And he will want to just keep it safe, stay on the track. Everyone else has to deal with the same problems, like we see now from Van der Linden, who was on the grass. And going into the grass again. Maybe some chance for Braun to gain a little bit of time, since Wesley seems to be struggling a lot more than him, even though Braun went onto the grass on the Senna straight. Or the Bentley straight. Could be either. Ooh, and Danielson sliding a lot there, but still on the track. Does manage to not exactly nail the braking, but stick the braking. The rear has absolutely no stability. But Rob Hendricks has the same problem. And the race is over. The clock has reached 0. So this is the final lap. And Dan Leeshin is crossing the finish line in P1. So race victory by Dan Leeshin. He wins the full grip motorsport Snetterton 120. Now we're looking at Rob Hendricks. P2, almost all of the race. Started in P2 and finished in P2. His first race with us, and already a P2 finish. So congrats to him. And now Robin van der Poel on track for his first podium. Going through the last turn now. Can he keep it on the track? He can. And he is also crossing the finish line for a P3 victory. So that is our podium. And now Toby Issinger in P6 crossing the finish line. And that is Florian Braun, who went off at the last turn. But yeah, Toby Issinger was too far back. And Marius Issinger spinning a lot. Austria also having problems though, and trying to stay safe. And those two are actually pretty close together, but Hostry is 2 laps down, so no challenge for Marius here. Wesley van der Linden through the last turn and across the finish line in P4. Congrats to him as well. And now Braun, even though he had that scare, still in P5. A great drive from him as well. Marius Issinger now crossing the track right next to Hostry. So great race from everyone. Just 8 drivers, or smallest ever race, or smallest race of the recent times. And yeah, thanks to everybody. Hopefully we can get a race highlight again. But this is the race. The order is Dan Leeshin, Rob Hendricks, Robin van der Poel, and yeah, now it's already gone. Wesley van der Linden, Florian Braun, Toby Issinger, Marius Issinger, and then I forgot his name, Hostry. So, great race. Thanks to everybody. Also, thanks to Gottschalk, who left in the first few minutes of the race, but still thank you for at least participating. And yeah, we will wait for a race highlights video, but for now, I will say thank you to everyone, and I will hopefully see some of you next week on Sunday on our 3-hour race in Spa. Yeah, the race was interesting for sure. We didn't see a lot of overtakes, sadly. I think we had one overtake actually happening on track. The other ones were just from someone spinning out. But hopefully we can see that now in our race highlights. So that is the start of the race, where Wesley van der Linden gained four places. You see him there on the inside gaining. And also Robin van der Put alongside Hendricks there, and Wesley van der Linden managing to overtake Marius Issenger. Going actually over the curb a little, staying on the inside. Now going into turn 2. That's Montreal. And yeah, just alongside Marius Issenger. And now heading really dive bombing them. I think that is Toby Issenger. The Ferrari. Florian Braun going wide there. But he does manage to get it on track here. If that was wet conditions, he would not have. But that allowed Wesley van der Linden to pass him here. Going into the Bentley straight. And that was the spin from Robin van der Put in P5 at the time. And that allowed Wesley to get into P5. Yeah, we saw that corner taking out a lot of drivers. That was actually just from traction loss in the middle of the corner. Marius Issenger also losing traction there, probably too early on the accelerator. And then, yeah, Van der Put managing to just avoid him there. I don't think the brakes were pressed at all times there, but the stewards decided not to do anything about it. That was ahead of Montreal. And then Toby Issenger with a little lawn mowing here. Again, same corner. Yeah, if you just go too wide through Brundle, then you can't make Nelson. So that is Toby Issenger cutting the track, cutting the white lines on pit exit, which gave him a 5-second time penalty. And Florian Braun just avoiding Marius Issenger on pit exit. And Marius Issenger subsequently going too fast into the pits. Now from his perspective, with the rear view. Going too fast. Almost touching there. That was like 5 centimeters. And then the same thing that happened to Toby Issenger earlier, happening to Wesley van der Linden, which cost him his P4, I think, at the moment. Or P3. Robin van der Put overtaking him there. And then Dan Leishon too wide there, and going into the barrier with a lot of damage on his left side. We've had a close-up look of that. Yeah, just I think too late on the brakes. And then obviously going into the grass, and there is again the close-up look of that damage. Almost no paint on the front, and a little bit of scratched on the back, but it doesn't look like too much damage. And there was Hostry also losing brake balance when he gets onto the grass on the braking. Happens to everyone, happens to the best of us. And that is Rob Hendricks also picking up a 5-second penalty, just going over the white lines on pit exit. But our stewards are thorough, and they're gonna catch that. And then Wesley van der Linden losing it again here, but he does manage to recover ahead of Braun. A real drive of shame back onto the track here. Yeah, just too early on the accelerator in heavy rain. Great. He managed to save the car. Just managed to save it, and then Braun, almost the same thing that happened to Leishon. But a lot less speed carried into the corner. So luckily he does not go into the barrier. And then Wesley van der Linden also going over the track limits into the grass. Yeah, the heavy rain at the end, we saw a lot of actually crash here. The suits didn't do anything about that though. Maybe because it was on the last lap, not enough time. But that was definitely on Hostry, and that's why they were so slow there. So Hostry was not trying to stay safe here. He just clipped the back of him and wanted to hopefully not get a time penalty while already being 2 laps down. So, but yeah, still great race from everyone who participated, and I want to thank everyone who joined the live stream, every driver who participated, and also the team behind the cams, who you can't hear but who make all of this possible. So thank you, Jimma and Epi as well. And yeah, I hope to see all of you next week on Spa, where I hopefully will have a co-caster. Thank you.